each day at this time on the show. And John, I look on the website, the ESPN website, and I see Peterson explains ill-fated two-point strategy is the headline to your article. But did he really explain it, or did he explain it to satisfaction? I mean, there's so many points that we could launch off to based on what he said yesterday and what he said today. First of all, welcome.
Hey, thanks, guys. Yeah, the dream team. Mike Gill's going to be running scared when the three of us get together.
I don't think he has anything to worry about. I think his post is safe. Just call me the long-term sub. But you certainly are one of our Eagles insiders. Scott Grayson here in the studio as well. And you guys, you were like the two Muppets in the box, right? Stadler and Wardorf. You got to sit right next to each other.
We did our fair share of complaining as well.
Yeah.
With different. But as far as the two-point conversion goes, hey, look, I applaud Doug for the decision. I think it was the right thing to do. And people really, really are harping on the fact that Ryan Matthews wasn't in the game. And it really, the bottom line is when you're going to throw the football, you're not going to have Ryan Matthews in the game. And that's one of those trend busters things you have to think about because he's not a good receiver. Opposing defenses understand that. They know that. And you got to be very careful about not getting too predictable with your personnel formations. And then on top of it, you have to realize where you were. Darren Sproles was not active because of the concussion. Wendell Smallwood is gone on injured reserve. Kenyon Barner's out of that game with a hamstring injury. So your other option is Byron Marshall, who's basically promoted from the practice squad earlier that week. So if Darren Sproles is out there, nobody bats an eye, obviously. And that's the mentality of Doug in the fact that, okay, Darren Sproles wasn't available, so in this particular package, it's next man up. Next man up, Kenyon Barner's not available. Next man up, Marshall. So there's your explanation.
John, I just don't get, though, what Doug says today, though. And here's what I know he's called a pass play where it's not like there's any read for Carson to make. It's designed to go to Matthews on a slant. So if that's the play, does it really matter if Matthews is out there or not? And I'm saying it from the standpoint of, what does it hurt to have him there?
You're right. I mean, if you're going to call a slant, it doesn't matter. Doug kind of admitted that. It doesn't matter who the running back is. So from that standpoint, you're right. Brian can stand there just as easily as Marshall did. So it's not going to affect the play either way. And again, you can look at that from both sides of the coin. You can say, well, why isn't Ryan out there? And then you can take the other avenue and say, well, it doesn't matter because they're not involved in the play. So I see both sides of the spectrum and both sides who are kind of criticizing him for it. I got a bigger problem with the play and the fact that everyone's saying tip ball. I didn't see Jordan Matthews create any separation. I didn't think, if any means, if that ball wasn't tipped, it was going to be complete. And I think people gloss over the more important part because Ryan Matthews had a heck of a game running the football, and they're concerned that he's not on the field. The bottom line is if he was on the field, it wasn't going to matter in that particular play.
So Doug Peterson met with the media earlier today, day after game, but also on a short week, kind of looking ahead. Lane Johnson is back in the building. Now, Doug, I'm curious for your thoughts on this. Doug came out, sight unseen. He doesn't know whether Lane's been eating himself silly since he was gone or whether, he's our starter. How do you feel about –
I find it interesting he hasn't looked at him. That's a concern. But, I think when you talk about the injuries and the fact that Vaitai might be ready, but he's been out for a number of weeks now. Isaac Seumalo, who, by the way, held up much better than anyone could have expected in his first game at right tackle, tweaks the ankle, so he's not healthy. and obviously Matt Tobin's on injured reserve, so he's not available. So I think what Doug was trying to say is, look, it doesn't matter. Sight unseen, Lane Johnson's one of our best players. He's going to have to go out there and play on Thursday night against the New York Giants, not only because of the fact of what he is as a player, but also because of the injury situation at that particular position. He's needed, and he's going to have to go. And even if he isn't ready to play, even if he didn't keep himself in the best optimal shape, and let's face it, you can't keep yourself in football shape when you're gone for 10 weeks. But the bottom line is the Eagles need him, and he's going to have to go, and hopefully he's ready to go, at least to a semblance of what he usually is, because it could get embarrassing real quick with Olivier Vernon, and even, JPP's gone for the Giants, but Romeo Okwara has been a revelation for them as a rookie.
John, let me set this up for you, because Doug Peterson's not the only one getting criticized today. Eagles go on a 17-play drive, 10 runs against the best rushing defense in the NFL. They take a 14-13 lead with 1:39 left in the first half after the field goal by Caleb Sturgis. It looks like they're going to be able to go into the half feeling good about themselves, and instead, Baltimore goes from their own 35 to the Eagles' 34 on 6 plays, and then get the home run ball to Steve Smith. After the game, Jalen Mills asked about that play, and he says, for sure it wasn't the coverage I wanted, but players play and coaches make calls. I have to make that play. Was it a call I wanted to be in? No. But regardless, plays have to be made in a game like this. You've got a rookie calling out his defensive coordinator. Is that indicative of how bad things are?
Yeah, that's not going to go over well with Jim Schwartz. And by the way, it was the perfect call defensively. And Jalen did his job. The one Jalen Mills, the guy talking out of turn, he was playing outside leverage, and he was expecting help over the top from Jalen Watkins, safety, who took his usual bad angle. And I wrote about this on 973ESPN.com. It's bad situational football. You don't understand what's going on because Joe Flacco, he likes to throw the ball downfield to begin with. Second, they're out of timeouts. If he is going to do it, he's going to take a shot if he throws the football, and he's just not understanding the particular situation in the game. So that was Jalen Watkins, and Jalen Mills might not even understand why it didn't work. That's why coaches coach and players play. That was the perfect coverage call for that particular shot that the Ravens were going to take. They took it anyway, and it worked because the execution wasn't there, particularly from Jalen Watkins.
John, we're 14 games into Doug Peterson as a head coach, so I think we have a pretty good sample size at this point. He's clear to say that he's definitely an aggressive guy. He makes aggressive decisions, but there's a lot of decisions that really puzzle me, and we were talking in the press box yesterday. Nelson Aguilar on a 4th and 2 on a jet sweep, that's the best thing you got to get that first down in a must-have situation? Well,
you're right. You've talked with me enough to understand. I bang my head against this wall when this team tries to give the football to Nelson Aguilar. Forget about key situations, in any situation. The guy has proven himself time and time again, and proven himself in a negative fashion, not a positive one. So I'm with you. The fact that you are calling a play, an important 4th down play, that could really lose you the football game if you didn't make it. They did obviously recover and able to come back and nearly tie it, nearly win it. But to call Nelson Aguilar's number in that situation, I'm not going to defend Doug Peterson there. I think it's crazy. If you want to run that play, run it with Bryce Trey. If you want to run that play, you can argue that that's not the play you want to run in that particular circumstance, and I get that, but I don't have as big as an issue with that part of it, because you look at where the Eagles were offensive line-wise. We talked about Sayamalo a little bit, being forced into action at right tackle. The fact that Baltimore is such a stout team against the run inside. So I get the strategy standpoint of trying to get outside, trying to surprise them, but to call that player's number in that situation, that's not good coaching. And one thing I talk about with Mike often is the fact that, and Doug Peterson is not alone with this, the great head coaches in this league delegate, and they delegate because they have to be game managers. In other words, they don't call plays. And they don't call plays for a reason, not because they can, because there's too much going on game day. And you saw it on the 2-point conversion. Everyone's complaining about the personnel package. Well, you know what Doug Peterson's thinking about? He's thinking about the play. He's not thinking about the personnel package. He's not thinking about maybe Ryan Matthews should be in there instead of Byron Marshall, because he's bogged down with the play call. If you're a CEO, if you're a game manager, you can make those decisions better. You have a clearer head. And same situation on that call. Maybe you like the call, but the personnel package is wrong. And you say to yourself, no, that's got to go Treggs. Treggs has got to be in there, not Aguilar. But when you're bogged down in the moment, stuff like that gets missed.
John McMullen with us on a Monday after a 1-point Eagles loss where they go for 2 and don't get it. Another close loss for the Eagles down the stretch. John, I know Doug was asked today, who's giving you that information? Is someone in your ear or is it on a sheet? What did you think of his answer to that follow-up question?
Well, obviously, I mean, that's one of those questions where you're not going to throw somebody under the bus if it is one individual. And Doug's right. It's generally not one individual. And that's, again, it goes back to being a game manager. It goes back to being a CEO on the sideline. And generally, the coaches, Bill Belichick would be obviously most notably as the best coach in football. It's generally veteran guys who feel comfortable in their surroundings. They've had some success. They've tempered the ego a little bit, and they delegate to assistants that they trust. Hopefully Doug is successful enough 5 or 6 or 7 years from now to where he will have that epiphany. But, yeah, I mean, generally it's like, if you think about an NFL game and 40 seconds between a play and how fast everything goes, bang, 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 you're getting information from all kinds of coaches. And it could be obviously most normally the offensive or defensive coordinator, but you could also be getting information from a position coach if a particular player's banged up. You could also be getting stuff from in the booth to challenge plays, to tell you something, to say, this is what Baltimore's doing in this particular formation, this particular package. And these are all reasons why you shouldn't be calling plays. But before you want to criticize and really level into Doug Peterson for that, realize that he's the norm. He's not out of the most coaches do that. And they're wrong, and they're all wrong. And Doug is in that big group.
John, as we were talking about Doug Peterson having 14 games on his resume at this point, we also have 14 games of Carson Wentz to evaluate. How do you see where he's come? Are you happy with the progress he's making going from week 1 to week 14 now, and there's peaks and valleys in between, but leading the team back to what would have been without the win possibly, or Doug's decision to go for 2, a game-tying touchdown in the final seconds?
Yeah, I'm very happy with Carson's development. I think it could have been a big moment for him if they won that football game. So I wish they did convert, because he did a tremendous job on that game-winning drive. And the fact that he was able to scramble in from 4 yards out and put this team over the top, I think was a signature moment for him. That'll be forgotten because they didn't win the football game. But I think against a very good defense to get over that hump was an important step. for Carson Wentz. And look, he's not played all that well recently, and I'm not trying to defend that or deflect that, but you have to be realistic. And this is an awful skill position group. And I often you look at the Jacksonville Jaguars. They've won 2 games. They just fired their head coach, and you would trade skill position for skill position with Jacksonville in a New York second. The Jags are much better off at the skill positions than the Eagles, and that tells you some of the things Carson Wentz has had to deal with, and the fact that there's just not enough talent around him. That's something that needs to be addressed in the offseason. And there are other things. There's no question Carson needs help with his footwork, his mechanics. There was another early interception that was directly related to footwork. He's got to fix that stuff in the offseason. So there's a lot of room for improvement, but anybody who isn't excited about this quarterback hasn't been paying attention, because he looks like he's going to be a star in this league and a star for a long time. And, you know, if you think about the trade, you think about Sam Bradford. And Sam, you look at his numbers in Minnesota and you say, you know what, he's had a pretty good year, especially when you consider all the Vikings' offensive line and injuries. But there's a reason NFL GMs look at Sam Bradford and know he's limited. And that's because he can't extend plays. He can't do what Carson Wentz did yesterday with the scramble to get in the end zone. And that's a part of it that's so exciting, or at least should be so exciting for Eagles fans.
John McMullen with us. He's here each Monday at 4:05 on the Sports Bash on 97.3 ESPN. And, John, I know to your point about Carson and lack of weapons, Doug Peterson was asked today, the Eagles have one play of 30 or more yards in the last 6 games. His answer got into a little bit of trying to deflect Carson's strengths and this, that, that. But the part that drove, I think, Scott Grayson and I nuts is when he said, I don't mind throwing a slant and letting the guy run for 25 yards. Whereas Scott and I are like, no, take a shot down the field. Did that make you sit up today when he said, I don't mind throwing a slant, an 8-yard slant?
No, because I think I'll tell you why, and I get it. I mean, I think they should take more shots downfield as well. Just for the matter, you saw it with Nelson Aguilar. Maybe the best play of the game was him getting the pass interference call late, where that's just the nature of this league. I mean, at times it's almost a 50-50 shot. You're going to get a PI call. So for that alone, you should take shots down the field. But every single offense in this league, and there's no better example than the team coming in here on Thursday, the New York Giants. The Giants were completely outplayed 2 weeks ago against the Cowboys, and they won the football game. Why did they win the football game? The defense was lights out, and they made one play on offense, and it was a slant to Odell Beckham Jr. that was a 7-yard pass, and he ran for 60. And that's what the Eagles don't have. And that's what you need. You can't – when you look at teams in this league, yeah, I just about everybody will connect on more downfield passes than the Eagles because they have better receivers. But you don't see that consistently in this league because the defensive backs are too good. You need guys to take bubble screens, to take slants, to take crossing patterns, and get yards after the catch. And as I said, you'll see it. No better example on Thursday night when OBJ gets here because he's the best in the business of doing it.
John McMullen joins us each day at 4:05 to talk Eagles football. And, of course, the rest of the NFL, too. John, a couple of news and notes, things that come out today, specifically in Houston. They're going to go with Savage again at quarterback. Houston, we have a problem, right? And it's our very expensive quarterback that we're not playing.
Yeah, and I give Bill O'Brien a lot of credit. I was talking to Josh before I came on. I mean, that's a lot of pressure. And the fact he paid $72 million to this guy, and he's not performing. He's been the worst starting quarterback in the NFL this season. and it's been consistent. And it speaks to just how talented Houston is defensively, that they're still in first place. And granted, a bad division, but they were going to lose that game against Jacksonville. And Tom Savage came in and played well enough to win the football game. And when you're in the guts of a season and you're a head coach, you don't care about contract numbers, or you shouldn't care, or anything of that nature. You just want to win football games to get to where you want to go. In the case of Houston, that's winning the AFC South again. And they're not going to be able to do it if they keep rolling Brock Osweiler out there. So I give Bill O'Brien a ton of credit to go to Savage, and we'll see if he can get it done. For one weekend, it worked, though. So you have to applaud him for that.
And we'll do our who's in, who's out that we always do on Tuesdays when you are in studio with us tomorrow. Real quick, looks like Gary Kubiak might have had to break up a fight between the offense and defense after the Broncos lose 16-3 to the Patriots.
Well, that's the frustrating part when you've seen it a little bit here with Philadelphia to a lesser degree, because the defense at times has been frustrated by the lack of production from the offense. You've seen it with the Vikings, similar situation where the defense was frustrated with the lack of production from the offense. And certainly Denver, when you think about what they have, and Von Miller, DeMarcus Ware, Aqib Talib, Chris Harris, 2 shutdown corners in a league where there might be 10 shutdown corners, and they have 2 of them. And they're the reigning Super Bowl champions, and it looks right now they're not going to make the playoffs. So that defense is frustrating.
John McMullen with us. We appreciate it. You'll be with us tomorrow in studio so we can have more of this back and forth dialogue about what is Doug thinking, what is Jim Schwartz thinking. Of course, Jim Schwartz going to talk tomorrow, so we'll be able to react to that as well. And we appreciate you coming on with us, buddy, and looking forward to seeing you in person tomorrow.
All right. Thanks, guys. See you tomorrow.